Hi, Jonathan Shargrave for Stretty News TV. I'm joined today by Kasey Keller. First of all, Kasey, how are we doing?
We're doing okay.
Yeah.
Retirement's treating me well. Well, sort of retirement. I guess I've moved into the broadcast side, so I'm still working quite a bit, but happy not to be on the field anymore.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, just taking you back to, obviously, you were born in '69. Do you remember an absolutely legendary Manchester United player who played over here in the States for Los Angeles Aztecs, I believe they were called, and San Jose Earthquakes, George Best?
Yes, of course.
Do you remember growing up as a youngster watching him play over here?
I think the difficult side of it was I was, really got into the Sounders in the NASL stage right at the end of the NASL. So growing up, I really wasn't, I played as a kid, but I really didn't want to. You just didn't have the opportunity to see it. And, growing up about an hour south from Seattle, it wasn't the easiest thing to kind of come up and watch games. And, my parents being, very American. They weren't, first generation or anything like that. So it wasn't necessarily a focus to let's go watch a football match. So it was a case of not until I was a little bit older when the NASL was starting to fold.
But do you think even back then, I know obviously football in the States was a lot less prominent than it is nowadays.
Sure.
But was it important to have a player of that magnitude come over here and play?
Well, I think if you saw the caliber of players that played in the NASL, obviously from the George Best to the Pelés to the Canalias it was really to the Beckham-Bauers. The list goes on, and so it really was an opportunity for the U.S. to see some of the best players in the world play in the NASL over a 10-year period, and it was a shame that it went the way it went, but it took some time in the wilderness, and now MLS in its 20th year is really starting to stabilize, and not only stabilize but getting more and more prominent, both in probably fans in the stadiums, people watching on TV, interest for the national team, and the sport's very healthy. It's just difficult because you have so much competition for viewership in America with what they call the big three, and football, basketball, and baseball, and NHL hockey has a big foothold, action sports, everything. So it's tough, but I think soccer is really carving its own viewership for sure.
And then I wanted to move on to obviously your own career. You came over to England in '92, played for Millwall. It's a curious time in Manchester United's history because we were right on the cusp of becoming a global juggernaut, really. Do you remember coming over and your sort of impressions of United when you actually arrived to England?
Well, when I arrived in England, you saw, funny enough, you saw Leeds kind of just tip Man U for the title, and there was a lot of rumors that it was very close to Sir Alex getting fired before he really had a chance to turn United into the biggest club in the world. So it was amazing just how quickly things can change, and how maybe just one interesting decision, maybe it changed the whole future of Manchester United. But I was obviously very proud to be a part of many interesting matches against Manchester United over the years, while they really were the preeminent team in England, and doing what they did and how many titles they won, and how and just what Sir Alex was able to do for that club.
And I wanted to, that leads nicely on to the next question. I just wanted to ask you any particular memories that stand out of playing against United, and any particular players that really stuck out for you?
When I was at Leicester, we beat Manchester United at Old Trafford. We beat Manchester United in the Cup at Filbert Street. Had some crazy games with Spurs. I was on loan at Southampton before I went to Germany, and played at Old Trafford, which was really before Fulham was really one of my last times in playing Manchester United. And then I just remember it was. We're playing Man U here in a preseason friendly, and I remember just walking off the field with Sir Alex with his arm around me, just talking about how, just how I was able to really kind of start the trend of Americans playing in England, and just kind of, for me it was like humbling, just saying what a great career I had, and just kind of, it was nice, and I always felt a lot of respect when I played against Manchester United, and the way that they treated opponents, the way they treated just everybody in general. I just thought it was just a class act all around.
And you alluded to it there, I think it was round 4 of the Cup that year when you won the League Cup. Another game which probably stands out would be the 5-3 against Spurs, and I believe you were on the bench
I was
that
on the bench,
day.
yes.
But what were your impressions of that?
I was on the bench that day. No, I mean, it's just, I think just what that team was capable of doing. Yeah. That you just knew at any given time that they had the confidence and they obviously had the quality that even when you're winning 3-0 that they could turn things around at any time, and you just were never safe. And it was a absolutely ridiculous second half performance from Manchester United.
And any players or goals that you can see, I don't want to bring up any bad memories here, that you particularly kind of rued when you were playing against United? Anything you particularly remember?
Well, I mean, I remember having a really big game. I said something really stupid before a game when we were playing Manchester United. I was at Tottenham, and I had been asked a question, something to the extent of, is Manchester United as dangerous as they were maybe 2 seasons ago or something like that? And I said something, and of course the British media kind of took it and ran with it. But I remember Teddy Sheringham saying something to me before the game, just kind of saying, why would you say something like that and just give them that kind of ammunition? So I really took a big responsibility on myself, and I ended up making quite a few saves that game. And I think in the end it was a Van Nistelrooy penalty that ended up being the difference in just the 1-0 loss. But there's different times when you just have to sit back and go, maybe it's better to keep your mouth shut.
Lovely. And 3 last quick questions in relation to United. First one, you played alongside Michael Carrick at Spurs.
Yes.
At the time, did you see him as having the ability to go on to play for a club like United?
Well, I think once again, I think it was a frustrating thing for all of us who've been involved with Tottenham and seeing players come into the side that you really felt could change the fortunes if you just added to what we had already started to build, and then seeing Michael leave so quickly and go to Manchester United and do what he was able to do was just, again, you look at, I've said on multiple times, you look at Gareth Bale, and I said, if Spurs really want to establish themselves as a top 4 team in England, you don't sell Bale, don't sell Carrick, don't sell these types of players. Add to them and try to establish yourself there. But I think we could all see, as Manchester United did, the quality of Michael Carrick and what he has added to Manchester United from coming from Tottenham.
And you touched upon it earlier when Sir Alex kind of commented on you were a pioneer, really coming over and carving the way for other US players, really. One of your fellow US goalkeepers, Tim Howard, represented United from 03 to 07. I'm sure you've had numerous conversations with Tim. What were his, sort of experiences of playing for United, and was he overawed really when he was approached by Sir Alex to come to the club?
Well, I think you always are. I think for Tim, coming from MLS and getting that opportunity out of the Olympics and everything, and having that commitment to a player that maybe wasn't on a lot of people's radar, and I thought Tim did fantastically well at United, and I think it just shows you just how difficult it is that you go to a club of that magnitude, you can play as well as you do for a period of time, and then if something changes and an attitude changes or something happens and all of a sudden you're out. And I'm just so proud of what Tim was able to do after leaving Manchester United. But I know if everything I know of, he has huge fond memories of Man U, to the point where, look, I know he would, well, I'm not going to speak out for Tim, but I know that he has just a tremendous amount of respect for his time at Man U.
Lovely. And just one question as well regarding a player you've played against here in the MLS, obviously former United player David Beckham. Has the US experienced anything, certainly on the football realm, like Beckham-mania when he arrived in the country?
Well, I think what you have to understand with David is there's really very few players in the world that kind of command the presence that David has from a media standpoint. And when you're looking at what David did, look, David, you talked about one, obviously a past United player in George Best. Yeah. When he came to the NASL, George Best was a player that could go pick the ball up off the goalkeeper, dribble 10 guys, and score an amazing goal. Look, David wasn't that kind of player. Yeah. And so I think there was a little unfair expectation when he came that he was just going to be unstoppable. But I think what David did do, and to his credit, everybody in the world knew that David Beckham played in MLS. And that was something that nobody necessarily really paid attention to before that. And so, give Phil Anschutz credit for bringing over David. The timing was perfect with the situation. I think if it had probably happened 6 months later, David probably would have stayed at Real Madrid. But because of the way it worked, and it was a really big boost on just kind of a global spotlight that David brought to MLS.
Yeah. And last question, United were here last night. What is it about Manchester United as a club, as a brand, that really resonates with American fans nowadays?
Well, I think everybody, look, it comes down to kids like winners.
Yeah.
And I think you have a whole generation of American soccer fans that got to the point when there was huge cable networks and you could finally get to see matches in Europe, in America. There was times, and I'll have friends come over now and they'll say, I can actually see more Premier League in America than I can in England. There's that much access, which doesn't necessarily bode well for MLS, but let's take big steps and or little steps and just see more people watching the game is only going to be a benefit throughout. And so I think in that time period when a lot of eyes were able to see English Premier League football, Manchester United was the biggest team winning all the titles. So I think a lot of those kids who said, I'm going to pick a team in England, you're going to pick the team at the top of the table. And I think there was two teams at that time period that benefited greatly from their success when a lot of Americans started watching. That was Man U and Arsenal.
Yeah. Kasey, an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for the time.
Pleasure. Thank you.